will tell us all about the children of Israel and the formation of the nation of Israel. One thing that's very clear is that Moshe was supposed to be the undisputed leader of the people of Israel. Unchallenged, undisputed. Of course, there was Korach, the articles of impeachment, and it didn't go well for Korach. But Moshe found himself shortly failing in his job as leader of the people of Israel, because his chavruta, his study partner, was Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. He got the direct download, but he then was incapable by himself to go around and adjudicate all disputes, clarify issues, and take care of everybody. So what he required to do the job was a group of shoftim, of judges, of leaders. He needed a leadership group. Now, just yesterday, I had the opportunity and the privilege to address the leadership group of Beit Tehila. And I have to tell you, of all the congregations I've ever been to in this movement, even the ones that wouldn't have me back, bless their hearts, I've never met a larger, more involved group than here at Beit Tehila. However, in order for Beit Tehila to reach that next level, in order for Beit Tehila to fulfill the vision of having an ongoing presence in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, it requires more people to step forward. Now, this movement in general is cursed by having way too many people who want to be leaders. They want to be scholars. They want to be teachers. They want to get online first for oneg. That's their concept of, it's amazing. In no other religious grouping could you ever imagine people who walk in the door, a stranger, totally unfamiliar with what this movement is about, and 4.5 months later splits off to form their own congregation. They become legends in their own mind. So I want to challenge each and every one here that when I'm back next time, and I'll be back, I want to see more people at that leadership dinner. I want to hear that there are more people involved. To run an operation like this is not simple. There are greeters. Heck, even Walmart doesn't have greeters anymore. We used to joke in Israel that if we ever had greeters if there was ever a Walmart in Israel, you realize what an Israeli greeter would be like. Why are you here today? What do you want? Remember, we are the most welcoming, distant, passive-aggressive people on the face of the planet. Those of you who've been to Israel know that that's true. The story is told of the guy who steps into the crosswalk, those magic white lines that are supposed to save you. And the car screeches to a halt, but just taps him. He falls down. The driver gets out, scoops him up, runs with him to the hospital, the entire time yelling at him, "Why did you hit my car?" That's life in Israel. But the leadership that's required. Now, for those of y'all who are not from Beit Tehila, I'm not letting you off the hook, because there are other groups, there are other fellowships, there are other congregations. There's B'nai Yosef North America. There are a lot of things that you need to be involved with. And what is required? A caring, open heart and a willingness to do what needs to be done. That is the only way. It's great. I don't want to recap all of my talk from Shabbat, but the focus has to be that every group has to be Israel-centric. You need to know where you're heading, both figuratively and literally. And you need to know, I made the remark, people come into congregations all the time, and they expect the carpet to be clean, the lights to be on, everywhere except for Florida for the heat to be on. This is winter. By the way, in Israel right now, we have sub-zero temperatures, snow up north, the coldest, wettest winter in about 50 years. I don't know what those 7 are going to come back tomorrow night like. Probably they'll be the first people ever to land in Tampa, get off the plane, fall to the tarmac, and kiss the runway. Dear God, thank you for bringing me back to Florida. So that's the challenge. That's one of many challenges that we have. We live in a world that's gone insane. It reminds me back in the 70s when we read that book about the distant future, 1984. And the Ministry of Peace were the guys that waged war. I still am surprised that when I get a form to fill out while I'm here in America, like PayPal asked me to do a survey for them. I don't think they had too many people in my age group. There were 7 options for gender. And that wasn't even the all of the above, none of the above, or I'd rather not say. I never thought it could be that complicated. People study scripture and they go from one extreme to the other. One is, I need someone to tell me what this means. The other is, I am vested with all the wisdom. I don't need anyone to tell me anything. Pastor Nick shared with me, someone put out a video trying to explain why the concept of the 2 houses of Israel, the house of Israel, the house of Judah, is a biblical concept. Those are the kind of things that make me twitch, because what is it that you don't understand? As a tour guide, one of the challenges that I have with people is sometimes I'm explaining something and they have clearly no idea what I'm talking about. So I've got to quickly figure out what it is that they don't get to be able to explain it. You guys don't be nervous. Don't worry. Tripp's going to explain everything that you need to know. Yeah, I'm guiding them for 2 days in May. Be afraid. Be very afraid. But I'll prove something to you. Briella, can I ask you to come up here for a second, sweetheart? You're not in trouble. Watch this. Briella, how old are you? 7. Briella, how many houses are there?
2.
Thank you. While Pastor Nick was showing me this video, Briella and Eva were sitting there, and every time this guy on the video would say, and how many, because it says, and the house of Israel and the house of Judah, blah, blah, blah. He'd say, well, how many houses are there? Even Briella would say, 2 houses. Any child could figure it out, but someone else, you've got the Jewish Messianic movement. They deny the whole thing. Their approach to Scripture is the Bill Clinton approach. Deny, deny, deny. I mean, seriously, it says, so this, that's both referring to the Jewish people. So if it's referring to just the Jewish people, what it's saying in effect is, so the Jewish people will join with the Jewish people, and who has the stutter? Why the it just makes no sense. But it fits their theological construct that in their world, Messianic Jews have the Torah, and Messianic non-Jews are the second-class citizens. They're the ones, somebody has to clean up after Oneg. They're the ones. I'm astounded by the whole thing. They think the whole concept of the restoration and reunification of Judah and Ephraim is heresy. Because without a second-class citizenship, you have to end apartheid. People ask me, do you ever speak in Messianic Jewish congregations? No. They have absolutely no reason that they would ever want me there. First of all, because I'm worse than you guys. Bless your hearts. Because I believe the same thing about the reconciliation, restoration of all of Israel, but I'm also what you all like to call an Orthodox Jew. They can't put me in any corner. They've got rabbis that they've kind of sprinkled holy water on and, made them a rabbi, you're now a rabbi. Perhaps a rabbit, but not a rabbi. Now, America. Let's talk for a little while about America. First of all, I think there's a general misunderstanding when I speak about America. Because my focus of my life is Israel, people think somehow that that's a diss on America. It's not. America is the greatest country on the planet. Israel, however, is the chosen land. It is God's land. There's no, I won't even entertain any discussion on that. Which, by the way, quick segue, is my issue with President Trump's alleged deal of the century. No one has the right to determine the borders of the land of Israel from outside of our country. We may go through another 3 elections, but you know what? It's still ours. It's ours. And until the rest of Israel comes home, we are the sole custodians of it. Now, I do find that whole proposal to be absolutely bizarre. Spend a little time and look at it. It's unworkable. It's unworkable for our side that every single community in Judea and Samaria would be surrounded by a sovereign entity that has never existed in the history of the world, something called Palestine. No relation to the Philistines. And by the way, a very interesting thing, those of you who I have had the privilege of guiding in Israel probably heard me mention this. The Arabs who refer to themselves as Palestinians cannot pronounce the P in Palestinians. That's why you will hear them say Palestine with an F. That's why Shechem, which was renamed by the Romans Napulus, after Naples, is now called Nablus because they can't pronounce the P. I have never heard anywhere in the world of a people who claim to be native of a land that they can't pronounce the name of it. There are some things that are so evident. You don't need to bring out DNA evidence. The other thing with DNA evidence, I mentioned it on Shabbat. Those people who were so consumed by Jew hatred that they have to insist that the Jews of today are not the real Jews. That they are some, European convert, whatever. My response is very simple. Those of you who are here on Shabbat heard me say it. I'll repeat it because it's really fun. That would mean that God himself screwed up. He brought the wrong people back to the land of Israel and have showered blessing upon blessing upon blessing on us. 1948, our War of Independence, 600,000 Jews in the country. Today, 6,800,000. Every single day we see the fulfillment of biblical prophecy in Israel. Let's talk about those guys who are coming back from Hayovel practically as we speak. The prophecy that states that one day again there will be vineyards in Shomron and Samaria. Boom, they're there. Now the thing about prophecy is, to me, and I think this is the accurate way of interpreting prophecy, prophecy is our to-do list, not a wish list. We live at a time where Hashem, where God himself works through people. He works in a natural way. For people to sit back and say, gee, where's Carolyn? Okay. Carolyn approached me just yesterday and the day before, actually, telling me that she wanted, a bunch of people want to buy wines from Yehuda and Shomron, Judea and Samaria. Well, you know what? There would be no wines from Judea and Samaria if there were no vineyards, and there would be no vineyards if crazy Jews like Nir Lavi said, hey, I'm going to do this. Augmented in additional fulfillment of biblical prophecy by the volunteers from Hayovel who come repeatedly. From what I've heard from people who volunteered there, it's not an easy tour of duty. Although the food is gourmet, not. The accommodations are spacious and lovely, not really. But where else? Florida's a gorgeous state. And I'm really digging your winter, I got to tell you. I couldn't understand why all those people, all the older people from the Bronx moved down to Florida when they reached a certain age. It's so easy to understand now. It really is. But each and every volunteer, each and every person that buys Israeli products, and again, I have to give you credit here at Beit Tehila. I don't know of a single congregation anywhere else that sells Israeli products right here in your building. Now, that requires two things. It required the vision of somebody to say, hey, let's bring Israeli products. It requires people to maintain that area. It requires people to, that's right, Kathy. I'm talking about you, girl. That's right. Come on now. Boy, we drag Kathy all around Israel, too. Can't wait for her to come back. If you have to be left at a hotel, better in Israel than anywhere else. That's just the bottom line. It requires people, and it requires people to buy it. It is a cooperative effort because there's a value placed on it. There's a value placed on it because without Israel, we would have no future. Now, I don't just mean physically being in Israel, but as it was pointed out to the American Jewish community who just doesn't get it, what would their life have been here in America without Israel post-June 1967? I grew up in an Irish Catholic neighborhood in the Bronx. I was hated by everyone in my neighborhood because I was the living Christ killer. It's just the way it was. All I got out of that experience was learning how to fight. Other than my parents of blessed memory, many of you have heard me say this, I don't have a single decent memory of my childhood. None. Zero. Zip. But after June 1967, the Six-Day War, after the Yom Kippur War, I was already in college by that point. I graduated high school at age 16. I used to be smart. That was a long, long time ago. I'm in college. The Yom Kippur War breaks out. And if you remember the war of 1973, it looked like Israel was on the verge of being destroyed, God forbid. Now, of course, there was the guy at Lehman College in the Bronx who said, boy, you Jews are really going to get creamed this time. So I took the appropriate response. I punched him in the mouth. You have to understand something. I never grew up with this tradition of turning the other cheek. No. You wage war. But the bottom line is, Israel is our lifeline. Israel, and I have to share what was taught to me by a Baptist preacher. The very first speaking date that I had in the state of Alabama was at a Baptist church in Millbrook, really small town. And the pastor there, Pastor Jared Decker, never forget, at the end of my remarks, he said, do you mind if I get up and say a few things? I said, Pastor, it's your congregation. Knock yourself out. He got up there and he said, as Christians, these are his words, we believe that our salvation is based upon our faith in Jesus. And he got all those, come on now, preach it, have a witness. Everyone was like, really. And then he paused and he said, however, if the Lord Almighty does not keep the promises that he made to the Jewish people and the land of Israel, how could we count upon him to keep his promises to us for our salvation? Now, everyone else they were applauding and they were jumping, and I was the one sitting in the back like this. Because he put it in a way that was so basic and simple. However, his view is not the view of mainstream Christian clergy in America today. Christian Palestinianism, the narrative where they actually paint the picture of Jesus, of Yeshua, of course they only call him Jesus, as a Palestinian revolutionary with a keffiyeh. Yeah, this is because we live in the world where people are inherently ignorant. You go onto YouTube and you'll see they go onto major college campuses here in America. They interview history majors at places like University of California, Berkeley. And they'll ask them, point out Washington, D.C. on a map. Who was it that the United States fought against in the Second World War? Who were its allies? Basic questions. Clueless. So when we look at people who are spiritually lost, don't be surprised. They have absolutely no foundation whatsoever in anything. They get up in the morning and they go off to work like they're on a prison work release program. They trot out and then they got to get back, after a lot, It's really amazing. I have stated before, and I again will reiterate it, this is not the United States of America that I grew up in. It's not. Now, again, people, can make the argument saying, I grew up in New York City, I really didn't grow up in America. And there is merit to that point, but I'm old enough to remember Memorial Day parades where veterans in uniform would walk down, the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. Memorial Day today is a day of barbecues, sales, and it's the start of the summer season, which ends at Labor Day. It really is amazing, and as a homework assignment, tonight I want you to go onto YouTube, type in West Wing Israel Memorial Day. Because I never watched the show, but I've seen this clip. Leo, the president's advisor, Martin Sheen's advisor, says to the president, in Israel, do you know how they commemorate Memorial Day? Now in Israel, the siren goes off at night. Regular programming goes off the TV. They show the image and the name of every single soldier that has fallen in defense of the state of Israel. You go to sleep, you get up, and it's still running over and over again. There's not a place of entertainment outside of the Arab neighborhoods that is open. Nothing. And what's astounding is, after sundown that night, starts Yom HaAtzmaut, our Independence Day. It's kind of bizarre. But there's a sense of acknowledging the sacrifices that these men and women have made. One of the nicest things about America today is when I see uniformed veterans, uniformed soldiers coming into an airport. Routinely, people stand up and applaud. I feel for those people who are a few years older than I am, who served in Vietnam. They never, ever got any acknowledgement or appreciation for their service and sacrifice. America is in the midst right now of a fight for its soul. Its very soul. The Democrats seem to have accepted the idea that it's fine to pick a candidate out of a group of candidates that is totally unelectable. By the way, that doesn't mean that President Trump is a shoo-in. He's got issues with his issues and problems with his problems. People ask me all the time, what do you guys in Israel think of President Trump? And this is before this deal of the century thing. And I used to tell them honestly, we have absolutely no idea. Because we don't know when the next shoe drops, what's going to happen. And I know that sounds like dramatic, but I'll give you the perfect example. This deal of the century seems to indicate that Israel can immediately declare sovereignty over the areas that America has blessed us to have. And by the way, I got to tell you, I resent it because I love America. But who's America to tell us what's ours? Really? I mean, when we all know that the capital of this country should have been New York City. We all know that. Well, David Friedman, who's America's ambassador to Israel, made a statement saying Israel needs to, he didn't say chill out, but basically slow down. And they sent Nehemiah to flash me the time card because they knew I liked him. I applauded him when he was sinking three-pointers. However, he's also a little upset with me because I pointed out to him that his sister, Hadassah, was actually the ace shot of the family. So it was a little tough for him, but that's okay. That's okay. It's the same genetic line. You're doing fine. Ambassador Friedman said that if Israel goes ahead on its own without America's okay, America will withdraw all support. This is not a real estate deal. We are not negotiating over a hotel on Fifth Avenue in New York City. It is bizarre. Now, I don't know exactly how this is all going to play out, but I do know that it seems that every time the U.S. has gotten involved and encouraged Israel to surrender land, it doesn't seem to work out really well here. I'm not drawing any conclusions. People have already charted it out. Y'all can go read it tonight online. So we get back to, this is the ball of confusion right now. The Democrats are still counting in Iowa. I have it on reasonable information. Just got a message the other day, just about 2 hours ago, that the Sesame Street character, the Count, is going to be brought out of retirement to help the Democrats count the votes. How can, after a week, you still not know who won? Now, I had the chance over the last few days to ride a bit with Pastor Nick. He's got the best stuff to listen to. I listened to Ben Shapiro. I know you guys probably thought that, all of us Jews are connected. No. Clavin, and they're playing clips. Mayor Pete says this thing, and then, Bernie the Red Sanders. I can't believe I've already lived long enough. Now, we've seen miracles. My generation has seen miracles. The idea that the Berlin Wall fell without a shot being fired. The fact that the Iron Curtain came down and 1 million people from the former Soviet Union, 2/3 of whom were Jewish actually, moved to Israel. Amazing. But at the same time, there are things that are going on that are just bizarre. The idea that the promotion of communism could be an in thing. It's like an option. I have to tell you, my only foray into looking at information relating to the previous American administration under Barack Obama had to do with the health plan. One of my graduate degrees is from New York University in health policy, actually with a specialization in healthcare finance. I never used it. I got that back when the Clintons were talking about national health care for America. But I actually read most of the Obama health care plan. I could not figure out how it could possibly be funded. Just based on that graduate degree experience, I couldn't figure out what this all was. To me, it all seemed like smoke and mirrors. When I've shared that with Americans, they looked at me and said, of course it couldn't be funded. So right now, it may seem odd when I'm telling you to focus on Israel when your country is fighting for its soul. However, it's all connected. That's the part. That's where it's easy to get distracted. It's easy, the classic, squirrel, what? This is the whole thing that happens on social media. Because as you know, I live on Facebook. The rent is pretty reasonable, much cheaper than the other rents in Israel. And you see this all the time, that people are, kind of being shunted from one way to the other. You've got people in Congress who wear white. I was watching that. I was fascinated with that. First of all, they tried for years to get people in the Knesset to wear ties. Menachem Begin was one of the first ones, 1977. So, like this whole idea, what is it about? Women's suffrage. Don't women have the vote? So I'm a little surprised. I was incredibly entertained with President Trump's facial gestures. He's very dramatic, and particularly when Cruella de Vil is standing behind him, and she's making her faces and then tearing up documents. I wanted to see federal marshals go and arrest her on the spot, because I knew that was a crime. My only quote from President Trump, well, actually, I use some of the same expressions. The one that's bleeped, I use a lot. But he made a comment regarding the elections in Israel, and he showed an enormous amount of wisdom. He said, you guys keep having elections and no one wins. Strange system. He's got it. Now, a quick thing about elections in Israel. By the way, I'm thinking the next time that I come back here to Brandon, there's a presentation that I had begun that I think I'm going to really flesh out. It's kind of like everything you always wanted to know about Israel from A to Z. That explains our peace treaties, our lack of peace treaties, what the Palestinian Authority is, the Oslo Accords, that whole ball of confusion. I do not expect there to be a change, by the way, in the elections in Israel. Let's be very clear about that. I think we will be at a stalemate. Never in the 71 plus years of Israel have we ever had a one-party majority. It's never happened. It's always a coalition government. It's not like England has a parliamentary democracy, but it's different than ours. So that's why you've got all these small religious parties that carry a disproportionate influence. Those of you who are friends of mine on Facebook, you can write me and I'll be happy to explain this more. Those of you who are not friends of mine on Facebook, what are you waiting for? By the way, one of my favorite things is when I go and I speak to a group and they say, someone comes over to me later and says, I'm not on Facebook because, I don't want the NSA to know who I am. Bless their hearts. If you are a person of interest to any agency of the American government, they know all about you. Altman, they've got you already. Don't worry. For sure. It's hard to be in this walk. It's hard to be so different than your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your relatives. I have it much easier. I say I'm Jewish, which I am. But people, of course, will Are you like, they want to hyphenate it. Are you like no, I'm not a noun in search of an adjective. It's okay. I just, but someone says, so what church do you go to? Well, we go to, Beit Tehila. We're focused on the Hebraic roots of the Christian faith. We're studying the Torah portion because Yeshua, and like 20 minutes later, they're like, you don't have an elevator pitch. You're Messianic, but you're not Messianic Jewish. Because that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But the thing is, we go back to the Tanakh, back to the Hebrew Bible, and we go to the source. And we want to know, what religion does God tell us that we need to be? Now, when I speak in a church, they say Christianity. Bless their hearts. And someone wants to pander to me, so they'll say, Jewish? And they're all going like, heaven forbid. Well, shh, be quiet now. No, there's no religion. We're required to have a relationship with Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven. That's what it's about. So the reality is, you're there. The fact that they don't understand it, again, as we say in Hebrew, no es mi problema. It's not my problem. Don't worry so much about what other people think. That's another thing in this movement that's very difficult for people to understand. I had someone say to me, why is it that the rabbis won't accept what we do? And she means her and her family. So I said, well, which the rabbis are you talking about? Are you talking about the local Chabad rabbi where she lives in a state up north? Does she mean rabbis in Israel? Like, what are you? Well, basically, what she was saying to me after a while, you kind of do your active listening thing. What I hear you saying is, back and forth. She says, basically, she wants to do her thing, their thing as a family, and she wants like the stamp of approval. But she doesn't want to do it the way that we do it in the Jewish community. So I said very simply, why are you looking for approval from a source that you don't want to play by their rules? So you need to be you. I know I'm going to get another flash of a time card momentarily. So what I want to do is pause briefly, drink some water, and then I would like to get into the real meat and potatoes, as we used to say, potatoes, questions and answers. Because I know there are a lot of things on your mind, and although there may be Jewish people in this part of Florida, they don't exactly have the experience and exposure that I have, and I'd like to see if I can clarify some things for you. So let's pause. Perfect example. What a great country this is. Smart water. I completed 2 graduate degrees in America and got 3/4 of the way through a 3rd master's. All I would have needed to have done was have drunk this water. I'm going tomorrow shopping. I'm going to get vitamin water. It's too much of an effort to unscrew the cap on my vitamins. Someone already took care of it for me and put it in my water. God bless America. America. You need to go into a supermarket in Israel and know why I walk down the aisles here like this. We may have 4 types of peanut butter. You have 44. You have peanut butter that's pre-digested, chunky and smooth. Brielle, am I boring you? Okay, sweetie. You all wrapped up there? Okay. Questions? Come on. Okay. Okay. This question is coming from Critics Corner.
Yeah. I'm surprised about, I have a lot of Jewish friends, a lot of people that live around me that are Jewish, and they don't seem to get it about the importance of Israel, or why are they Democrat?
All right, we're going to cut right to the issue. It's very simple. Most Jewish Americans are at least 3 to 4 generations removed from any connection with anything truly Jewish. They don't know the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. They don't study it. They don't have one in their home. No one in their family has eaten kosher for maybe 60, 70, 80 years. They don't know. They're about it. Okay. Pastor Nick just says something which is very true. It's like Ephraim. It's our mini version of what Hosea says, that you'll forget who you are. They are Americans who simply by accident of birth were born to a Jewish mother. That's it. Why are they Democrats? Well, that I don't know. That I don't know. Seriously? Nothing? Up. You hesitated and you lost.
Pastor Nick's mentioned it a few times, but is it possible for a person from America to buy it?
Okay. It's not possible for anyone of any land to actually buy land in Israel. The vast majority, approximately 96% of land in Israel, was purchased originally by Jewish philanthropists through the Jewish National Fund from the Ottoman Turks. The Ottomans were corrupt, and they were willing to have a fire sale. These people, all those little blue boxes that years ago, they used to be in every Jewish home where people used to put money, to buy land and to buy trees and all that stuff. Yeah. All of that then was given over to the government of Israel. So the government of Israel is actually our biggest landlord. So you can buy a home very expensively. You can buy an apartment. You're actually just leasing the land though, which I know in America is a strange concept, because when you buy land and a home, first of all, people buy a home that needs a lot of work. So they'll either fix it up or they'll knock it all down and build something. You can do that. And you can do whatever you want to your land. You can pave it, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. Just trying to keep one step behind Pastor Nick with that. So, no. So you can't buy the land. I can't either. You can give me the money and I can buy an apartment for you and I'll take care of it. By the way, yeah, you guys could buy an apartment together, the two of you. Yeah. Two wild and crazy ladies. Lord have mercy. Okay. As a non-citizen, that I don't know. As I tell people, I'm a tour guide, not an attorney. Actually, what I usually say is, when people say, well, Rabbi, I said, no, I'm not a rabbi. I'm a tour guide. I work for a living. Like, what? It's kind of an inside joke. Sorry. Up! Thank you. See?
I'm just curious about the Dead Sea. It seems like every time we have gone to visit, it's shrinking. I was just wondering what the state of the Red
Okay.
Sea is.
Dead
Dead Sea.
If the Dead Sea appears to be shrinking, I know you're all waiting for me to say you should have your eyes checked. No, it is shrinking. It is shrinking dramatically. There are three main reasons. Number one, the Dead Sea is actually a giant lake. It's not a sea at all. It's only open on the northern side where water comes from the Jordan River. Most of the years, we have really bad rainfall. Really, we've suffered drought for many years. Not this year, though. So there's less water coming in. There's also more water evaporating. Whether that's global warming or not, I have no clue. Not touching that one. Although Al Gore did invent the internet, so we have to give him credit for something. He did that. Briella's nodding. Yeah. Okay, and the major reason is the extraction of minerals, both on the Israeli and the Jordanian side, although the industry is much larger on the Israeli side. Not for the Dead Sea skincare products, but other uses for the minerals. They take them out. The potassium is used for fertilizer around the world. So the Dead Sea is shrinking. In fact, when we go to Masada, I will point out that when I first went to Israel in 73 as a kid, it looks like now from Masada, when you look out, it looks like there's a land bridge all the way to Jordan. It actually isn't. It's broken up by more water, but the Dead Sea is not what it was. So, of course, there's a plan. There's a plan for everything. To create a canal from the Red Sea. And, of course, that would be called the Red Dead Canal. It would go through Jordan, but I'm not making this up. It's true. Some marketing firm must have been paid a fortune to figure that one out. The only thing is, no one has funded this. It would run about 200 kilometers through the kingdom of Jordan. Abdullah's country there is $40 billion in debt currently. They're not jumping at this proposal. And we in Israel have only had interim governments for the last 12 months. We can't make a decision about anything. Bless our hearts. So yeah. So that's why it's a good thing you're coming this year. People who are waiting for the next Beit Tehila tour, I don't know where we're going to take them. I'll take them to the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, and I'll say, this is the Dead Sea. And they'll say, no, but on the other side, next to Tiberias, you told us it was the Sea of Galilee. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. And they're like, what? David Altman has a question.
So you mentioned that, we don't have an elevator pitch. And we don't have an elevator pitch as Messianics. And so if it's very easy to be here, be surrounded by Beit Tehila, there's an information overload here. We have a lot of information, Torah studies and various other things. We have you to come and speak to us about the things of the land. But to a layman, someone out in the world who is uninformed and uneducated, what would be an elevator pitch be that could inform them very quickly as to why it should be important to them?
Okay. If I were you, I would say that I try to live my life according to the way Yeshua lived his. Boom. Now, they'll look at you and say what? Okay, but even if you say Jesus, I am trying. Everybody that I meet in this walk tells me that they're trying to follow in the footsteps of Yeshua. It's so much easier for me to say Yeshua. Because that's what his mother called him. I mean, I say that in Israel, and the Europeans kind of like, the French kind of look at me askance. Inspector Clouseau, what do you mean? They hate speaking English. They hate it. They still think Napoleon's going to come off that island somewhere. They're still like, they're waiting. It's like, by the way, a little bit of sports trivia, because I missed a speaking engagement because of it. Y'all have this thing called the Super Bowl. It appears the Chiefs, well, clearly the Chiefs won, 50 years. Jubilee. And it appears there was some Christian pastor 7 years ago. I've got to get his name. I saw this online. I couldn't believe it. Who said that when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl again, the final redemption is near. Now, when we have wacky rabbis say things like that in Israel, I kind of go like, I do my Lurch imitation. But when evangelicals do it, I think it's like, well, that's really cool. So we have no idea. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. That also should provide the opportunity for the person to say, well, how did he live? And, it's very difficult when you speak to people who have the standard Christological view of Yeshua's life. I mean, if you want to see their heads explode, say there were two things that Yeshua never had in his lifetime: a New Testament and a church to study it in. But hopefully that provides respectful dialogue, because you need to know this. I'm all about mutual respect. People tell me, well, I do this, and on Shabbat I don't do that. I don't want to insult them, and I really don't care. I mean, I no offense. Whatever you do, you don't have to explain it to me. I'm not judging you. But you shouldn't judge me either. And the hardest thing for Americans is to get to the place where they're willing to let God be God. We know that the two sticks are brought close together, but we only become one in his hand. We want to jump ahead. We don't want to do anything, but we want to jump ahead and be God. Let God be God. Okay. Uh-oh.
Dun-dun. Dun.
Why did you give him the microphone?
Because she's a good girl.
That's a good girl.
No, I just want to bring this part out in Ezekiel 47. We talk about prophecies. It's interesting that it goes on to say, in the caption of this chapter of 47 of Ezekiel is the healing waters from the temple. It says that, then said he unto me in verse 8, these water issues toward the east country and go down into the desert and go into the sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the water shall be healed. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth whithersoever the river shall come, shall live, and there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. So this river is going to flow into the Dead Sea and make it come alive again. But it goes on to say, and it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from En-Gedi, even unto En-Eglaim. They shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea, exceeding many. But verse 11, but the miry places thereof and the marshes thereof shall not be healed. They shall be given to salt. So from a geographical standpoint, from NASA or from looking down, actually the Dead Sea looks like it's become two bodies of water, which is broken off. This bottom part could be the part that's going to be miry, nothing can live, and then this part that's above the north
could very well be
Ezekiel 47.
Also, you hear about flash floods coming across, and you see, YouTube's washing across, Route 90, our longest highway along the Dead Sea. Where is that water coming from? Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the watershed mark of our country. Half of the rainfall that falls on Jerusalem goes to the Mediterranean. The other half comes east. Jerusalem sits approximately 860, okay, I have to be non-metric, pardon me. Sits approximately 2,500 feet above sea level. The Dead Sea is about 1,000 feet below sea level. It picks up a lot of steam coming down. So maybe that's part of the deal. We shall see. Other questions? Hi, Casey. You didn't bring your own microphone? What What's the advantage of working with the media group if you can't walk around with a microphone? Okay. Oh,
person, I wanted to know, on your tours or when you're in America speaking, how many young people have a love for Israel? What's the average of? Are there a ton of other young people?
I would have to say, as a general rule, not enough. Let me explain. It's very difficult for many people who don't have a large congregation supporting them to be able to instill this fervor that y'all have. There are enough challenges in our society today for younger people. When I say younger people, let's say high school and post-high school age. There are enough challenges, there are enough temptations, there's enough of society out there that's beckoning where you can really get lost. This movement is no exception. We parents have never been able to keep our children in bubble wrap. The hardest challenge as a parent is reaching a point where you've got to instill in your children a sense of right and wrong, and this is what we believe and how we believe it. But most of the time, they're away from you. You're not holding them by the hand. You've got to equip them to make the right choices. So I don't have a percentage, Casey, but it's clearly not enough. David Altman again.
So to that, a little bit of preface before I ask you the question. When I went to Israel the first time, I was with one of the large groups that travels there. It's paid for. If you're between a certain age and you're Jewish, they pay for you to go to the land. And on the return, I talked to about 30 or 40 youth, and maybe 3 of them had gained interest in the land. So if you would just kind of characterize the differential between like religious connection to the land and kind of what is done when people go there just to party, drink at 18, various other elements of, because there's a huge difference between emotional connection and just going. And you speak about that at length, and I'm just giving you an opportunity.
Yeah. David's referring in part to the birthright program. Jewish philanthropists and the government of Israel, to a much smaller degree, have created a program where they've brought college-age Jewish kids to Israel for a 10-day experience in the hope of connecting them with Israel and creating some level of Jewish continuity. I have very mixed feelings about this program. It is a 10-day party. Many of you know my guiding business now is off the hook. I am busy all the time. I get home Tuesday night next week. Saturday night, I already go to pick up a group. I have 8 major tours scheduled in 2020. Baruch Hashem, thank God. Private business, all kinds of stuff going on. But even all those years when I was desperate for work and working part-time in the Western Wall tunnels, I never guided a birthright group. Because the idea of spending 10 days, 24 hours a day, keeping an eye on people who are only interested in getting drunk, getting high, and hooking up was not my idea of a good time. I've already raised my children. I wasn't, I do well with people who want to learn. You can't lead someone where they don't want to go. However, there are kids from the birthright program who stay on, who join the army and become lone soldiers, and actually do stay in and succeed. I read a statistic the other day, just last week, that said that 80% of American Jews support Israel. I don't believe that at all. No way, no how. But you know, statistics may lie, or they may be interpreted or misinterpreted. But statistics that people need to know, they don't know. I'll give you an example. Many people are afraid that Israel is dangerous. I mean, people still go to Walmart in El Paso, even though they were shot down. But people are scared. Some people are scared. So I want to bring you two statistics from the year 2019. With all the terrorist attacks, how many people were killed in Israel by terrorists in 2019? And people were killed. 18. 2019. How many people were killed in automobile accident fatalities in Israel? 348. Nobody goes to Israel and says, I'm not getting in a car. No one says, I'm not getting on that bus. I don't care if Moshe is driving it or not. I'm not getting on. It is what it is. So we have this sense of misconception. I don't believe that young Jews in America support Israel at any great percentage. They don't have the educational background to be able to say, they're shown maps and they said, this used to be Palestine. No one stops and says, wait a second, that was British mandate. No one before 1967 called for the creation of a so-called Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria, which was occupied by Jordan. No one called for the creation of a Palestinian state in Gaza, which was occupied by Egypt. David, and that's it.
Yeah, so
You're
just
done.
To bring a little bit of hope to it, because when I went there with you, and I got the opportunity for you to introduce me to my home, which is a cool experience, by the way. You once told me that when you come to Israel and you invest your mind and your spirit in Israel, you get back what you put into it. And you've told me that at length. And so could you elaborate on people that go with you, people that want to invest in the land, what you can get out of Israel if you go and put yourself into it? Because what most people do is not what people here are going to do. What people here are going to do is going to invest their mind and spirit into it. What can that accomplish?
I used to say that going to Israel will change your life. I rather now prefer to say, stealing a term from my friend, buddy, brother, and mentor, Mike Clayton, that going to Israel defines your life. It's really a sense of knowing what's important and what's not. It's really a sense of when I'll meet someone, not from this movement, someone who's Christian, whether they're religiously observant or not, who'll say to me, I don't get it. I don't know how I got here. Now, of course, they know they got on a plane. But in other words, they were going to Hawaii, and they wound up in Israel. And he said, I don't have a single Jewish bone in any skeleton in the family closet. No one, no Jews. So tell me why I can't stop weeping and I feel more at home here than any place on earth. That's an absolute unique phenomena. There is no reason on earth that y'all should feel comfortable in the vineyards of Samaria. It's nothing like the climate here at all. Speaking a language, it doesn't matter. Do you realize these volunteers are volunteers? They paid money to go prune vineyards. service to the land. It's an amazing concept. So let me quote Moshe Kapinski, a dear friend who he and his brother own the Shorashim shop. He tells people that when they come to Israel, they'll have to learn to, I'm paraphrasing, hear with their hearts. That you may think that you're planning to come to Israel. You bought the tickets. You've made arrangements. You made that decision. Absolutely not true. You were invited by God to his land for his purpose. You have to open your heart to ascertain what that purpose is. Maybe it's to inspire you for the rest of your life. Maybe it's, I got to tell you, if there's nothing else in your life but getting up every morning and going to work, God, I hope you'll be paroled soon. What a horrific existence, trudging. People say to me, you're obsessed. You dream daily of this restoration of Judah and Ephraim. Like, Hanoch, get a life. And I say, that it is my life, and I think it's the best life ever. It's the best life ever. I mean, it's really, I'm doing these day tours recently. These Europeans, you drive 2 blocks and you're looking at the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. And they ask you, are we in Palestine yet? And I'm the one who gets to tell them, well, perhaps you're not aware. There never was a country called Palestine. You guys in the EU are obsessed with creating something. But you know what? You guys got rid of 6 million Jews and you replaced them with 50 million Muslims. How's that working out for y'all? Bless your hearts. To be in a position to be able to do that? Wow. I could have had a V8. All right, 1 or 2 more questions. Okay. Come on now.
Can I throw something out of left field?
Sure.
It's way over there.
I've got my baseball expert in that row over there, so, that's fine. That's fine.
Can you define the difference between what the Palestinian quote-unquotes want and what the Palestinian Authority wants?
Okay. The question, it's actually incredibly simple and easy to answer. Because you need to understand that little more than 10 years ago, there was a peace plan put forward by Ehud Olmert, who was our prime minister at the time. He was also put in jail, as our current one probably will be too. That's how we roll in Israel. They offered 95% of Judea and Samaria, all of the old city of Jerusalem, and additional areas of land swap in the Galilee. And Mahmoud Abbas turned it down. Why? Because the very idea that Jews get up every single day in Israel and continue to breathe is an unacceptable offense to them. That's really what it is. It's not an issue of more land here, less land there. It's a sense that in Islam, you cannot accept any other group in any land that Muslims have ever controlled. They want Spain back. Por favor. It's okay with me. So what, quote unquote, the Palestinians and what the Palestinian Authority want is the same thing. They want us dead. We're not going to oblige. Okay, last question. Hi, how are you? I missed you on Shabbat. Well, I'm glad you're here now.
Oh, yes. Question. It was talked to about the land that we cannot buy land. If I'm not here, if I heard you right, it said, can we buy land?
Right.
Okay.
Like you can buy homes and apartments. You can't own the land.
Okay.
When I say you, all of us,
Okay.
none.
All right. No, because I was kind of wondering, because I'm with Pastor Nick here and stuff. I personally would like to see Beit Tehila and established in Israel. So how can we establish a base there if we can't own it?
Well, in the same way that 6,800,000 Jews in Israel are able to live without owning the land. So don't worry about it. We're going to figure that all out. What we need to do is lay the groundwork now.
Okay.
And I want to be clear. Although I'm implying that y'all need to go out and make sure that all of these seats are filled, the right people will come here.
Right.
Pastor Nick taught me this trip. He teaches me something every trip. This time, and he boils it down for me because he knows he's talking to someone of limited intelligence. And he said, our goal is to keep the good people in and the bad people out. And I was like, what a brilliant idea of security. Amazing. You continue to do what you do, you will attract the right people. And there will be enough people with enough money and enough connections to make anything and everything in Israel possible. We're actually ultimately only limited by our own lack of creativity. And this is a pretty creative bunch. I mean, the very fact that you're putting on Zeresh the musical, I think is amazing. Really. I don't know if there's anyone else that can appreciate Eddie's accent more than me. I love it. Really. Okay, anything else? Oh, Tom. You have to wait for the microphone.
You know, I think from the media that we hear that, like in the Gaza Strip, that there's 150,000 missiles aimed towards Israel.
That's Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Hezbollah in Lebanon. But again, just with so many missiles, I mean, what is the government? Are they just going to let those missiles be aimed at them, or what's the solution to that?
Well, we certainly have enough generals and ex-generals to pontificate on that. Our army has repeatedly been training and preparing. We've been getting repeated warnings that the home front will suffer terribly in the next war. Simply because, you know, in Gaza, if they were firing 150 missiles in a day, think of what 1,500 coming from the north. Also, Iran's proxies are all set up in Syria as well. So we're training and preparing. I mean, you know, we in Israel, and, you know, we're blessed with an incredible Air Force. The men and women are just, you know, extraordinary. And we'll do what we need to do. Pastor Nick?